Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to this week's installment of Mark and the Midday. Well, you got one Mark so far today, and Mark Littell, my partner, a.k.a. Country, is out and about. He will probably be joining us, probably a little late, like most closers do. They come in a little late, which is great, but that's okay. That's fine. Gives me the chance to just kind of hog up all the time with our special guest. We have Mr. Morris Mo Resner with us today. Mo, how are things going?
Very good. Mo is fine. Morris is good. And my other name is Mike, and that's going too. So we're 3 and 1.
So you got a lot of aliases. So you're a man with aliases.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, one of the major reasons we decided to bring Mo on the show today is because he has a slice of Americana that he owns and created, which is he shot film. Was it 16 millimeter at the time?
16.
16 millimeter film on September 29th, 1957, a date which is the final Giants home game ever played at the Polo Grounds up in Manhattan. And you are the man who has that film. Did you ever in your wildest dreams expect it to be that important piece of history when you were shooting it almost 50 years ago?
Positively not. In fact, I wasn't even going to go to the game because nobody wanted to go with me. But I always had my camera with me. That was a hobby of mine, still is, but not as fanatical as it was. So I went to the Polo Grounds by myself with my movie camera, color film yet, which nobody believes, but it was color film. And I bought box seats for $1.50, $2, and the security guard let me on the field. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know it was the last game in the history of the New York Giants. And they had ceremonies.
So you stumbled into history.
That's correct. That is correct.
And that happens all the time. I mean, think of the most famous piece of film in the 20th century, probably the Zapruder film, A Man Who Stumbled into History. So neither of you go to your events expecting history, and yet you stumble onto the history. Tell us a little bit about how you got access. Because you were down on the field. You weren't just shooting it from the upper deck in the Polo Grounds.
No, I bought box
field.
seats. I bought box seats or maybe grandstand seats, and I walked down to the railing, and the security guard knew me for some reason, I guess from previous visits to the Polo Grounds, and I asked him, what's going on? He said, it's the last game in their history. I didn't know that. And I said, what are all those people doing on the right side? He says, there's ceremonies going on. I said, oh, boy, I've got to film this. And he says, you want to know something? Climb over the fence. I'll let you in. I stayed on the field for 3 hours. I filmed part of the game. I filmed the ceremonies. And since I knew how to shoot a movie camera without jumping around, I got perfect color film. Wow. And I put it away for 50 years.
Now,
my parents helped me with the titles. And
did you get to interact with the players at all?
Just by waving, saying hello here and there. Hank Sauer was a great person. Sid Gordon was a beautiful person. He was a hero of that era, third baseman for the New York Giants. And but I met them all. Mrs. John McGraw.
Wow.
Carl Hubble and Rube Marquardt. And they were shaking hands with each other. I don't think they had ever met because both were stars in different eras. So I got rare footage of that. And Willie Mays.
And Monty Irvin.
Monty Irvin I met. Willie Mays was busy signing autographs, and I didn't even realize that I had the back boy in some of the scenes, 16-year-old kid. I met him 50 years later. He became a lieutenant commander in the Air Forces, and we became friends. And he saw the movie with his family, and they were ecstatic. They saw a 16-year-old kid on. It was a great movie, just great.
But the key thing is, you said it sat on the shelf for like 50 years. What resurrected it? What brought it back out? That
all right, I put some titles on with my parents' help, and a little background music, and then I put it away. A New York Giants veterans group, all the old guys, found out about it. They say, why don't you come to our club, but before, take the 16 millimeter and convert it to VHS. I said, okay. So I did it. I went there, I showed it to the members, and unbeknownst to me, Richard Sandermeer from the New York Times was there. And he liked it, and he put my picture in the New York Times the next day.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I hadn't seen him for I never saw him again until 2 days ago. I went to his book signing. So one thing led to another. Now I have a film, 40 minutes long. I got Ed Randall from WFAN to
talking baseball.
To do the opening, and then I got Perry Barber, who's a female umpire and a professional, to do some music. And one thing led to another. I started to take it seriously, so I wound up at Cooperstown and showed the movie. And I was in a private screening room, about 10 people, and when it was over, they applauded me. They put it right into the Hall of Fame.
So it's up in
Imagine
Cooperstown.
that.
It's up in Cooperstown right now.
Absolutely.
Well, I can tell you right now, I'm dying to see it, and I've seen clips of it, and just from the 90 seconds that I've seen in the clips, it's got my appetite wet because I love the history of New York City baseball, and I couldn't track down how to get it, and that's how I met up with you. But since I've got you here, and you've got the film, and of course a book that's coming out in the near future, why don't you tell the folks who are listening how they can actually get in touch with you and purchase a copy of the film, which is on DVD, and also get the book when it becomes available on Amazon?
Okay, yeah, Amazon is going to handle both of them, but the DVD, the cover is changing. We're changing part of the cover. And in the meantime, it's insignificant, but I have some DVDs here, and all you got to do is call me at 732-221-8777 and leave a message. My email address, by the way, that's even easier. It's mrresner@AOL.com. That's M for Mary, R for Robert, Resner, R-E-S-N-E-R, @AOL.com. It's like Mr. Resner at AOL.com.
Excellent.
Yeah, this thing is, the DVD got completely out of hand because 2 years ago, this New York Giants group made a reunion in San Francisco for some of the New York Giants players. There's only a few that were left, and one of them was Willie Mays, and the San Francisco Giants. And they called me, and they said, "Hey, Mo, we got the video. It's great. We're going to show it on the big screen. Could you give us a speech?" I said, So I did a 2-minute speech in front of 40,000 people talking about the DVD, and they all knew I was a Cub fan. And I was invited to San Francisco anyway, because by then everybody in the world knew I was a Chicago Cub fan.
And you were actually wearing, I've seen the video of that, you were actually wearing a New York Giants hat and jersey.
I was wearing a Giants hat absolutely, and I was happy to do it. And then I got to know the front office. Larry Baer is a friend. He's the owner. The former owner was there. He made a speech too, Peter. And I'm in touch with them. As a matter of fact, Larry Baer and the San Francisco Giants came to Wrigley Field on May 25th, the same day that I threw out the first pitch for the Cubs.
All full circle.
Completely full circle. And then the front office of the Cubs got to know me after San Francisco did. And I got to know Willie Mays in San Francisco, and he wrote me such a great letter that's on the DVD. So
that's a spoiler alert for everyone who's getting the DVD. We won't tell you what's in the letter. You've got to get the DVD to actually see it.
All I know is that he felt he everybody who sees that DVD who's over 55 or 60 will definitely shed tears and then watch it again for another 40 minutes.
What about an old soul like myself who's 52 and feels like he missed his calling for the right generation? Will I shed some tears too?
You won't. You may not cry unless you knew some of the players, because most have passed away. But you'll really like it enough to see it twice. Like Bill Rickney was the manager, the late manager of the Giants. Mm-hmm. His son, John, has the video. Willie, of course.
And what did John say when you spoke to him after he saw it?
I didn't speak to him. He spoke to my partner, George Gregor, who wrote half of the new book, which is another story. And he loved it. I'll tell you who cried watching it. Sid Gordon was a big player for the Giants. He hit like 270 home runs for the New York Giants. His son got the video, and he's still watching it. And his father, Sid, was such a nice man to me. They were all, I could have actually, they were so friendly. If I grabbed the glove, I would have been able to work out with the team. Right on the goddamn field.
Wow. Wow. So,
and the book came out in January. You want to ask me questions about the book?
Absolutely. So, well, first off, what drove you to write the book, and what is the book encompassing, and how long did it take you to do it?
Okay. George Gregor is a financial consultant. That's how I got to know him. He's a writer, and he writes a lot of poetry as well. He was writing a book about the Chicago Cubs. When was he doing it? During last season. Was writing the book. And he found out about me, and he said to me, could you write like a one-page forward? I said, absolutely. Then I met him, and I told him I was a comedian in show business, that I was in his own profession of financial consulting, and a Cub fan. He said, do me a favor, write an autobiography. It took me a year to write the autobiography, 110 some odd pages, and it was in time because we got the book published while the Cubs were winning. So when they won the World Series, we added a piece to it, and I got a book with George called The Chicago Cubs and Mo. And that came out in January, 2 months after the Cubs won the World Series. And then in April, it was entered into the archives of the Hall of Fame.
That's awesome. I got to ask this question, though. In all honesty, you got to be honest. You got to be truthful here, because we don't lie to our listeners. But you got to be honest this one. Did you ever think in your lifetime you'd see your beloved Cubbies win a World Series? True.
Yeah, if I lived long enough.
If you lived to like Moses' age of 125, you were probably thinking.
I waited 71 years from the time I was converted into a Cub fan. I don't know what I was, Yankees, Giants, Brooklyn Dodgers, but they talked me, one kid who's older than me, he was about 18, talked me into going to the Polo Grounds. He says, I want you to be a Cub fan. I said, why? He says, you'll see. Cubs killed the Giants that day, and I caught a foul ball off the shortstop, Len Marullo, who just died at 98 2 years ago. He became my friend 30 years later, a good friend, 30 years after I caught the foul ball.
Wow.
And then in January at the annual New York Baseball Writers Dinner at the Hilton, I met Jed Hoyer of the Cubs, he's third in command. And I had a sample of the book. He said, wow. I said, Jed, let me ask you a question. I want to throw out the first ball. He said, let's do it. So I said, but you got to do something for me. I'm still at 85. I'm still running around a baseball field in an independent league, and I work out and take batting practice. I can't go on the field without a uniform. They got me the uniform of the Chicago Cubs with the World Series on it. And on May 25, I threw out the first ball in front of 40,000 people. And they went crazy. And by the way, I reached the plate.
No bouncing it?
Nope. But I didn't
from the rubber?
Yeah, from the rubber.
Nice.
So when I went out, they announced to me, here he is, Mo Resner. He's 86 years old. He was with the Montreal Expos minor league teams for 8 years, and he's now with the independent Pelamets Baseball Club for the last 30 years. Here he is, Mo Resner. I didn't walk out. I ran to the pitcher's mound. And I took the ball, and the catcher was waiting for the pitch, and I didn't pitch it. I called him over, like a regular game. I said, the name is Mo. Let's go. I wound up, full wind-up, and I threw the pitch, which came over the plate, not wild, right over the plate. I didn't like the pitch. For some reason, I thought it didn't reach, but it did. I called timeout again. I signaled, come on out. I said, let's do it again, and we're going to do it until we get it right. The next pitch right over the plate looked like a curveball. The place was screaming. They had to play the music a second time because I'm the first guy in the history of throwing out first balls that threw out the first ball twice.
Technically,
and before the game, they warmed me up. They warmed me up because I wanted to be a pitcher. So I played the game complete. And
so you bring up a great point that I wanted to ask you about. You spent a decade plus, maybe a little bit more than that, working in the minor league system for the Montreal Expos. How did you get that position? What did you do in that position? And just tell us a little bit about some of the great people who came across while you were doing it.
Okay, 1978 to 1984, I was a special assistant coach for single, double, AAA Montreal Expos, not the major leagues. Now, how did I get the job? Let's go back. I started assistant coaching in 1957. That's after the Polo Grounds, or at that period of time, right before the Polo Grounds closing. My friend Nick Pester, a great friend for many, many years. He was also with the San Francisco Giants for one game. Anyway, he brought me to Dallas, Texas, and I worked out and became an assistant coach with the Dallas Eagles, AA, strangely owned by the New York Giants. Who was on the ball club? Tony Taylor, third base. Joey Amalfitano, second base. Nick Testa, catching. Ernie Broglio, starting pitcher. And a young, skinny kid at first base by the name of Willie McCovey.
Wow.
We won the pennant by easily. Salty Parker, a great guy, was the manager. In 1960, I met Jim Fanning, Dallas Rangers. Again, Dallas, Texas. He became my closest friend. He let me take batting practice. I did everything except play a game. And many years later, he became part of the Expos, and he says, Mo, you're hired. And the book that I co-wrote with George Greger was dedicated to Jim Fanning, who passed away 2 years ago. I still can't get over it. He was such a great man. Jim Fanning. And he played for the Cubs for 4 years, batting 150.
I think he's the only manager to take the Expos to the postseason in the history of the franchise when it was in Montreal.
Yeah, I was there all the time. And I met so many players through him. Tim Raines, I met. He became a friend. I know him for over 45 years.
How excited were you when he finally got into the Hall of Fame?
Well, it surprised me that it took so long because I had a little hand in this thing. I pointed out to sports writers, did you ever look at the defense instead of as well as the offense. And that got him in, I know, because they started to look at the defense. I couldn't make it to the Hall of Fame when he was inducted this past July. He was the second best fielding percentage in the history of the major leagues in the outfield. Tony Gwynn was first.
And yet this slipped by them. They didn't notice this.
Right. In 23 years, Timmy made 67 errors, I think. 67 errors. You know how many errors Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, and Willie Mays had in the outfield? Well over 100 each guy. Timmy Raines had 67.
Wow.
He was second in assists in the major leagues. His base running percentage for stealing second was the best ever, ahead of Ty Cobb, ahead of Lou Brock, and ahead of Ricky Henderson. He was the smartest base runner who ever lived. In his first 27 games in the major leagues as a rookie, he stole 27 bases in 27 attempts. Nobody ever did that.
It's amazing.
That's how good he was. That's how good he was. And we're still in touch with each other. And in January, he's going to be awarded the Rookie of the Year from the New York Baseball Writers. And, of course, I will be there. I always am. It's a black tie affair. And that's it. I get carried away. But I get so many stories that are in the book. Like meeting Larry after Don Larson pitched his no-hitter, the famous no-hitter.
The famous perfect game in the 56 series.
Yeah, he wound up in the minor leagues with a sore arm for a little while, Kansas City, in 1960. Guess who was with him? Me. And Jim Fanning. So,
wasn't that during the era when Kansas City was known as the Yankees quadruple A club, where they would always send guys and get guys from Kansas City?
I think you're right, because when I was with Jim Fanning in 1960, we were owned by Kansas City. So, and Don Larson came down, and we got to know each other.
Wow. Was he the type of guy that didn't really want to talk about that game a lot, or was he okay with it? Because I'm sure that there's never been a time where he's had a conversation where somebody didn't want to talk almost exclusively about that game.
That's correct. I think he got over it, but I think he got over the emotions. But he's quite a guy. He's quite a guy. I met him, by the way, about 10 years ago. I think I gave him the DVD, and I showed him our picture. He remembered, but not too much. But he didn't know me, but he saw the picture. He remembered, you know. And Jim Fanning, again, was the manager of Kansas City and Kansas City minor leagues, that's the Dallas Rangers. It was Jim Fanning's last year as a player, and that was in the minor leagues.
So was he a player manager, which was pretty common back then?
He was player manager, yeah. And then he quit, and he had a great career after that, and I followed him everywhere. And then when he hit Montreal, you know, but I had batting practice in every field that I got to.
So you've lived a great baseball life, so to speak, and you've also lived a great comedic life. So tell our listeners a little bit about your exploits in comedy.
Well, I became a stand-up comedy in the 60s, and I eventually quit because I had a family. I kid around a lot about it because one of the reasons why I quit was I was too damn funny.
I had to laugh at that.
I worked the nightclubs that are no longer in business, and one of them, I got some pretty good laughs. After the show, he called me over and says, "Listen, kid, I got people here who eat food, and you are interrupting the food. They can't eat while they're laughing." I said, "Well, gee, I was supposed to be a comedian." He says, "Not here." So do me a favor, when you go on to the second show and people are reading, I want you to talk about Charles Dickens and Mark Twain and leave out the comedy.
Drop the shtick.
This is true, all true stories. I worked, and this is also in the book, I worked a nightclub up in Albany where the owner was notoriously tough, and the band leader said, Mike, do the best you can the first night because they're going to probably cancel you out. They threw out the late Jack Carter. They threw out Woody Allen because he was too smart. So I figured, well, I got nothing to lose. I'll stay away from the owner. And when they introduced me as Mike Reese, that was my name in show business, I didn't come out from backstage. I came out from the front of the theater thinking I'm going to get fired anyway. I slid into the microphone, and the band leader said, safe. I got a big laugh. I got a big show. Did the second show fine. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Didn't see the owner, and he didn't throw me out. So now it was a Saturday night, and everybody left. So I said to the band, well, I guess that's it. He says, don't leave. Don't leave. First you got to get paid. Don't leave anyway. I said, okay, I'll see you. Owner comes over to me for the first time, and he says, thank you very much, Mike. Here's your money, but you're going to do a show. I said, to who? He said, to me and my friend who's coming. You come to the bar, you do a show for the two of us. I said, okay. I did 40 minutes. 20 minutes I ad-libbed, and I made fun of both of them.
Channeling your inner Don Rickles.
Yeah, I got $250 in cash, which was big-time money in 1970.
Sure.
And he said, you tell your manager and the agent that any time you want to come back, you're welcome.
Did you ever hit or work the Borscht
No,
Belt?
I never went back.
Did you ever do the Borscht Belt?
Yeah, I did the Borscht Belt. I did okay, but not great. I was better in the Italian mountains.
Ah, gotcha.
They laughed
when
I came on the stage. The Jews saw a lot of my friends who were very successful. So who the hell is Mike Reese, you know? And I got laughs, but not that much. But I did well in the Italian mountains.
There you go.
And I worked with some great I worked with the Platters. I worked with the Four Aces. I worked with a guy that's still doing shows. I got to go and see him one day.
Who's this?
What's his name? Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Wow. And
Little Anthony must be 80 years old already.
I would think so, right? His heyday was probably he started like big time like in the mid-50s, right?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. When I worked with him, my car broke down. It had to be fixed. I couldn't get home. You know what Anthony said? I'm taking you home in my car, and I'm picking you up the next day to go to the next show. That story is in the book, and I got to see Anthony. I'm glad you reminded me. I got to find him and see him. That's great.
I didn't remind you. You reminded yourself.
Yeah. That's right. Hey, you haven't had too many questions. I'm doing all the answers without questions.
I'm telling you, I'm replaceable. I actually think that, you know, you might have to get double salary for this one. I might have to donate mine back to the company. Wait, I'm not.
No, I might do something different. I might fire you and start my own radio program.
Well, that's fine. Then I'll take your baseball uniform and I'll go on to all those fields and throw out the first ball, and they'll say, "Who the heck is this schmuck throwing out the first ball?"
Right. That's right.
Yeah, we could do a little exchange. We'll see how the other guy, walk in the other guy's footsteps for a while.
Oh,
for all our listeners out there, I just want to remind everyone we got Morris Mo Resner, a.k.a. Mike Reese, his stage name, and we've been talking baseball, we've been talking life, and, of course, talking comedy, and went over here on the Company's Own Network. You're with the Mark and Mark show. We've got Mark flying solo without Mark Littell today. He's a little bit late or under the weather, but we'll catch up with him next week. So, Mo, tell everybody when the book signing is going to be and where it's going to be and how they can get there.
It looks like the book signing is going to be Wednesday, December 6th at Foley's Restaurant, F-O-L-E-Y-S. They're at 18 West 33rd Street, right opposite Macy's. But
Okay.
I'll tell you, not Macy's, opposite the Empire State Building. Foley's you ought to go to anyway because it's a great baseball restaurant and a bar, and they got over $1 million of bats, balls, memorabilia. You'll love it. Just tell them Mo sent you. But that's where the...
I'm not going to tell him Mo sent me because I'm going to be there when Mo's there. I'm just going to point you and say he sent me.
But in the meantime, they can go to Foley's and have a good time.
But we definitely want them to come for the book signing.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you one
Pop their cash
story.
right on the table, get a book, get it signed.
Yeah.
I told you my request. I want two things. I want a signed book and a picture of me and you while you're signing the book.
Right. And I'll get the DVDs there as well. Let me tell you something that is next with the Chicago Cubs. Of course, we got to know each other. We're friendly. You know the name of Jack McKeon. He was the guy that beat the Cubs in 2003.
Trader Jack.
But he was also my boss in AAA. And I didn't want to speak to him for a while because I was annoyed that they beat the Cubs. Well, let's set the clock ahead. I met Jack at Foley's Restaurant. And he made an announcement to the papers. He's going to be 87 years old. This is last year now.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be 87. And he wants to be the oldest manager who ever lived for one day. So I called him up. I said, I read about this. I said, that's great. I said, I got a proposition for you. I was your coach at AAA. I'm your age. There's never been an 87-year-old coach in the major leagues. I want to be your bench coach for one game. He said, I'll think about it. Now I'm ready to call.
87, you better not think about it for too long. You better do it.
Well, next year. Next year we'll both be 87.
Where's this going to happen, though? What team?
Well, he wants it in Miami. But I got another idea. I told the Cubs, why can't I be the oldest coach ever and wear a Cub uniform whether Jack shows up or not?
Yeah. Who needs Jack?
They said they would think about it. Now, if I can get Jack and the Marlins to Wrigley Field at that time, and if they agree, we can have a doubleheader, me and Jack McKeon, bench coach for a day.
I think that's a date. You got to get this done.
I don't know if it's going to be done, but it should be done because everything I do in life is different, and the Cubs know it. Jack knows it, and a lot of other people know it. So I might as well do it if I can.
Well, we've come to the time in the show where we have to say goodbye. Normally, I turn to the closer, who's out there, and he has his closing statement. First thing is I'm going to thank Mo for being with us today because we really appreciate it. And we're definitely going to get you back on the show again, especially right around probably before the book signing so we can let everybody know about it and remind them again. But I want to thank you for being on the show. I'm not good enough to close out the game like Mark does when he closes out the show. He says no P's at the knees, no something at the eyes, and no wall balls. Well, I'm not good enough to do it. I don't remember it. I don't know how to say it, but I'm just going to say thank you all for listening today. Take care, and let's catch up with you guys all next week. And thanks again, Mo, for being with us. Bye, guys.
My pleasure. Great.